This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a great recipe for an Irish cream cupcake. What makes these cupcakes really special is that I've added Bailey's Irish cream both to the cake and the frosting. I'm going to start by getting my cupcake pan ready, and I got these great little shamrock cupcake liners, so I thought that would be perfect for these cupcakes. Now in this recipe, we're going to use two kinds of chocolate to flavor the cupcakes. We're going to use some cocoa powder with the dry ingredients, and right now what we're going to do is we're going to melt some semi-sweet chocolate. So in a microwave-proof bowl, I'm going to measure out a half a cup of semi-sweet chocolate. And to that, I'm going to add a half a cup of butter. And I'm going to put this in the microwave, and I'm going to microwave it on 30-second bursts. And after every 30 seconds, then I'm going to use my spatula and stir it up until the chocolate and the butter is totally melted. Now after the second 30 seconds, you can see this is really nice and melted. Now because I have the butter in there, it's going to be a little more liquidy than normal, but this is fine. And so I'm just going to let this set off to the side until I'm ready to add it to the rest of my batter. Now we're going to get our dry ingredients in our mixer bowl. So I'm going to start by measuring out 1/3 cup of cocoa powder. Now I use a Dutch processed cocoa powder, but you can use whatever you've got on hand. But the combination of the cocoa and the semi-sweet chocolate is going to give these cupcakes a really great flavor. Now to the cocoa, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of regular flour, 3/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Now on a low speed, I'm going to mix those dry ingredients together and really take the time to make sure that that cocoa gets mixed all the way through the flour and the sugar. Now I'm going to put in 2 eggs and our melted chocolate mixture, and do give that a little bit of a stir to get that melted butter mixed back in, and I'm going to put that right in. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 cup of buttermilk, and when that buttermilk hits that baking soda, that's going to start to give the lift to our cupcakes. And remember, if you have a hard time finding buttermilk, go to our website, and I have a little recipe that says how you can make buttermilk out of just regular milk and lemon juice or vinegar. And our last ingredient is 1/4 cup of Irish cream liqueur. Well, you can see this batter comes together really quickly, and once it gets smooth like this, we're ready to put it in our cupcake pan. I'm going to give this a final scrape down with my spatula, making sure everything's mixed in really well. It's such a smooth batter, it's just beautiful. And then I'm going to use my cookie scoop and just start dividing that batter into my 12 muffin liners. It's always important to make sure that you get an even amount of batter in each one of the cupcake wells, because then that way the cakes will bake nice and evenly. Now make sure to preheat your oven to 325 degrees, and then these are going to bake from between 18 to 20 minutes, and we'll test them with a toothpick to make sure that they're done. Wow, these smell so good. And they've puffed up just beautifully. Now I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm just going to pop it right in the center. Now see, that is not coming out clear, so that tells me these are going to need about another 2 minutes in the oven. It's been another 2 minutes. So let me try poking the toothpick back in, and it comes out clear. So these are cooked all the way through now. I'm going to let them sit in the pan for about 5 minutes. Now before I take these out, I'm going to take my little paring knife and I'm going to run it along the sides, because sometimes things get sort of welded to the baking pan while they're cooking. So now this one didn't, so I don't need to do that, but this one did. This one's a little stuck, so I'm just going to run my knife along the edge of it, and then see, it pops right out. Now it's important when we are making cupcakes that we always want to make sure that the cake part is really, really cooled down all the way before we make the frosting. Otherwise the frosting just kind of melts on top of it. So as I get these onto the cooling rack, I think I'll probably let them cool for about a half an hour, and then I'll go ahead and start making the frosting. Well, our cupcakes are nice and cool, so it's time to make our Irish cream frosting. Now I'm going to start by using my mixer with my whisk attachment, and I'm going to start creaming up some cream cheese, basically 8 ounces of Philadelphia cream cheese. And I'm using a regular cream cheese, not a light one, and I'm going to pop that in my mixer. And then I have 4 tablespoons of butter, and I've cut that into little cubes. I'm going to add that to the cream cheese, and I'm going to let the mixer start creaming those together. Now while the butter and cream cheese is mixing together, I'm going to add some more Irish cream liqueur. So I'm going to start by adding 3 tablespoons in while this cream cheese and butter is creaming together. I've been letting this cream together for about 2 or 3 minutes, but I'm going to stop it at this point and scrape it down. We don't want to add our powdered sugar until this mixture is really nice and fluffy. So I'm going to scrape all of that butter and cream cheese off, and then I'm going to let this whisk again for another couple of minutes. Now the cream cheese and butter is nice and fluffy, so I'm going to add my powdered sugar. I'm going to measure out 3 cups of powdered sugar, and I don't bother sifting it or anything. I'm just going to do a quick little measure like this, but I am going to have the mixer off when I add this powdered sugar. That way it doesn't fly all over the kitchen. Then I'm going to turn the mixer first on a low speed, just to get that powdered sugar kind of mixed in a little bit. And then I'm going to slowly crank the speed up until it's going at medium high, and then I'm going to let that whisk together for about 2 minutes. Now about halfway through, I'm going to scrape it down again, because the powdered sugar sometimes sort of flings to the side of the mixing bowl, and we really want that to get really well whisked in with everything else. And then I'll go ahead and let it beat for the last minute. Well, this frosting is looking really fluffy and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer it into a smaller bowl. I find it makes it easier for me to frost the cupcakes if the frosting is in a little bit shallower bowl than this big mixing bowl. Now it's time to frost our cupcakes. Now we have a very generous amount of frosting here, so I'm going to go ahead and pile this on nice and high. Now another thing to remember is, because these cupcakes have a cream cheese frosting, we'll need to keep these in the refrigerator to store them. But here's another trick that I do many times with cupcakes. After I frost them and after everybody has one, I like to go ahead and put them in the freezer. Now the way I do that is I just take the cupcakes plain with the frosting on them. I don't put any covering on them. I just sit them on a plate and put them straight away into the freezer. overnight. And what happens is then the frosting gets nice and frozen. Then tomorrow what I'll do is I'll individually wrap each cupcake. Then I'll put them in a freezer bag and store them in the freezer, and they can stay in there for, sometimes 3 months. And then whenever anybody wants a cupcake, they just take it out, unwrap it. They can eat it frozen, which a lot of times that's what my guys like to do. They don't even like to let it sit on the counter for 15 minutes and defrost. But if you did want yours to defrost, just sit it on the counter and then go ahead and eat it. And it tastes just like a freshly baked cupcake. So that's a really good tip to remember. Well, if you'd like to try these Irish cream cupcakes at home, just go to our website and visit the Cupcake show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.